I mean, recording.
Like
Right,
I
so I'm
record this on my end.
Okay.
So yeah. Well, hey, either way, good to talk to you again, Mayo. Long time no see, man. How you been?
It's been a while. I've missed you, man.
I know. You probably really
Been
did.
so long. We had such a great convo last time.
We really did. Yeah,
Really?
I
So
remember
how
that
have you
too.
been? What's been going on in Hunter's world since then?
I gotta turn your volume up on my end. Just still doing the fucking stream, you know?
Okay.
Streaming, debating, having fun.
Nice. You said you had a couple other debates tonight. What was that about? Who was that?
Yeah, you guys are the last one. Don't worry. Best for last, okay?
Yes.
Nice.
But yeah, the other
what-
debates were just people that wanted to come in and talk.
In your Discord. How'd they
Yeah.
go?
Okay.
It went fine.
What did you guys debate?
The one person talked to me about whether or not I was still alt-right, even though I've never been alt-right. And then the other person wanted to talk about how diversity or women in the workforce doesn't necessarily benefit the innovation, which I said that just plopping a woman there doesn't, but having diversity in general does, because it also depends on how you are to implement said diversity. So, but that's all.
And really quick too, the chat, don't send TOS violating super chats because it's just gonna make him leave. So just don't do that, and I'll skip it if you do. So just at least be respectful of his TOS.
Do not cuck the content.
Yeah, exactly. Don't. I know you guys want to call him all these names, but at least like just don't do TOS violating stuff. Just gonna end up ending the stream. So there. All right, sorry. Oh, and it's a $5 for super chat or TTS.
Okay, well, if anybody wants to donate to my chat, you know, on my end, go for it, guys. Give me that Soros money.
Yeah, the Soros money.
Wait, so people are really calling you alt-right?
Yeah, somebody on Twitter was, but they walked it back. They were actually they admitted that they were just kind of saying shit in the heat of the moment, and yeah, they don't think I'm actually alt-right, because I was never
You think
alt-right.
they just wanted a chance to talk to the famous Hunter Avallone?
I don't know, maybe, you know. Pretty popular over here.
You know what's really fucked up, man?
What?
My girlfriend said that she used to watch your videos all the time.
Oh, Brittany, I didn't know you used to watch my videos.
Oh my gosh. You're a clever guy, Hunter. You are a clever guy.
Said she used to watch your videos all the time, and she loved watching it. And she and her friends would laugh at how fun you were, and no, it's just kind of sucks.
Well, I mean, it probably sucks if they are against the idea
If they
of
liked what you used to say.
Well, it probably sucks for them if they're against supporting rational thought, that kind of shit. You know, I can understand that for sure. What's up? Are they like were they a religious type?
Anonymous.
Yeah.
$5 Rabbi Lampshade.
I hope that that's not going to violate TOS. Can you like just turn that off for now, maybe?
Okay, fine. Here, I'll make the TTS a lot higher.
I promise you, I'm not offended by your language. Sticks and stones break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Okay, but it might hurt my channel, and that's what matters to me.
We don't want it. We're not trying.
And it'll hurt your audience, right?
I don't know.
It hurts.
Also, chat, can you let me know if the audio sounds level enough? I want to make sure that neither one is overpowering the other. I want to make sure that we sound equal enough.
Oh, that's sweet of you, man.
But yeah, why is your girlfriend no longer a fan? Is she like the religious type? I've been really going on a anti-religion crusade recently.
Really? Yeah, she is religious.
Oh, is she a Christian?
Uh-huh.
Oh. Well, I feel very sorry for her.
You said sticks and stones break your bones, but words will never hurt you. But they hurt your audience's feelings enough that you have to apologize for people that you're working with, huh?
Are you talking about the merch thing? Why are you and Brittany so obsessed with this? You realize that this didn't actually offend many people. It was just me making a smart business move because, again, I don't usually do shit that doesn't align with my principles. That's it.
Well, I mean, that's not what you did. It's like someone else that you worked with that did something.
This is so weird that this is like your biggest obsession. Why don't we just forget about this bullshit?
I just heard about it the other night.
This is irrelevant to anything. Are you a Christian, or why don't we talk about religion for a little bit?
Yes, I'm a Christian. Let's do that.
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. Give me a minute.
It's okay. I forgive you. It's a Christian value, forgiveness.
I don't know why he won't just freaking come on the camera for on his thing. I have to do it like from his
So sad.
stupid YouTube is what I'm getting the camera stuff from. I kind of like the idea what he does with making the host chat on the screen. That's not a bad idea actually.
What chat on the screen?
Well, he did this on the modern day debate thing. He posted chat on his screen, so he was able to see what the chat was saying from their chat.
He really allowed.
Hey, I'm sorry about that. My wife was calling me, so gotta drop everything. But anywho, yeah, let's talk a little bit about religion. It sounds like your girlfriend is a pretty adamant Christian. I don't know where are you at with religion, Mayo?
I'm also an adamant Christian. We fit well.
Okay, cool. What denomination of Christianity are you?
I haven't really figured that out yet, to be honest. I don't even know the real differences between all of them. Like specifically, there's a lot to figure out. I just kind of like read the Bible and I know it's real.
How do you know it's real?
And, well, I learned that like the devil is real, and that just made me realize. I realized that like
because you looked in the mirror. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. Please, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Got me. All right, I'll take that up. The same characters, the ancient characters that are mentioned in the Bible, like Moloch and Baal and all of that. It's like there's still like the most evil people in the world today. Those are like their gods that they're worshiping, and
a lot of my problems with the Bible come from the fact that although some of it might be historically accurate, there's a lot of really large claims that are impossible to verify. So, for example, Jesus rising from the dead, we don't actually have any evidence of that. All we have are claims of other people saying he rose from the dead.
They didn't really have cameras back then, so there's that.
It's not just cameras. There's not even any kind of documentation. There are no medical records. I guess maybe it's too much to expect medical records back then, but I would have thought that there would be some kind of a even primitive type of way of keeping records. I know, for example, the Romans were really good at keeping records in general, so it just seems like the problem with Jesus, at least, is that he may have existed. I'm pretty sure it's not even disputed that he existed, but it's more the problem that there's no way to confirm any kind of divine claims.
Oh, okay. Well, you know that Luke was a lawyer who worked for the Roman government, and that was his job, was to write up a report on everything that went down with all the Christians and stuff.
Well, he must have been bad at it because he got a lot of things wrong. So, for example,
that would be frustrating.
He got like even just little details wrong. For example, the whole part of in the very beginning where he talks about going to Bethlehem or Mary and Joseph going to Bethlehem, like that was entirely incorrect. If he was actually a Roman lawyer, I don't know why the hell he would have written that somebody came from another region to go to Bethlehem for a census, considering the fact that Romans didn't even do censuses like that at the time. That wasn't even a thing.
Would the word be senses?
Maybe, maybe, but I don't know, actually. Yeah, I got to brush up on my grammar a little bit. But the point is that there's not actually a lot of proof, again, that the Romans would require you travel for a census. The whole point of a census was taxation. So it makes no sense that they would have been required to travel.
That does sound interesting. How do you think they kept track of like populations and stuff?
Well, they would have done a census. But the idea of traveling to your birth region in order to be counted does not make sense because the census was done for taxation purposes. So if you were not in your region or your home, then counting you, getting a head count would be practically useless.
I see. What if that was like their home, but they were living somewhere else at the time and had to travel back home for the census, for the taxation?
Because then why do they have to stay in the manger, or why do they have to stay in the barn or whatever where Jesus was born in the manger?
Well, that was a whole like I think it was because like she was giving birth, and it was like they were in the middle of traveling. I don't think that was like home. I think that was just where they landed
I'm
when all
pretty
that
sure
went down.
Luke directly says that their home was
In a manger.
no, that their home was I believe in Nazareth,
Oh, okay.
and then they traveled to go for the census.
Well, Jesus was a Nazarene. That's where he was from. I don't know if that's like Mary and Joseph's home though, and they would have had to travel for those purposes to their home, right?
Yeah. No,
So-
actually, wait. Let me just pull up my source here for it. Hold on.
Sure.
So, Luke 2:1-3 says, "In those days a decree went out from Emperor Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration and was taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. All went to their own towns to be registered. Herod the Great died in 4 BCE, and yet Quirinius wasn't appointed as the governor of Syria until 6 CE. That is after Herod the Great's son was banished. Quirinius didn't rule until 10 years after Herod the Great had died. This means there's no way that Quirinius could have called a census while Herod the Great was king." So there were inaccuracies there, and then also we don't have evidence that subjects of ancient Rome were required to return to their ancestral homes for counting or taxation purposes. Like, it really
Okay.
doesn't make sense, right? Because the point of a census is for taxation.
Right. I mean, unless that was their home and they were just staying outside of home before that.
I mean, that's not what's described here at all. I don't know if she was going into labor, they would like have to go and stay in a manger or whatever if they lived there. But either way, the overall point,
I don't think
even
the
if that
manger
part,
was the destination of their travels, like ultimately.
even if you were correct that they actually did live there, it doesn't take away from the fact that they got the name of the ruler wrong, the name of the person who issued the census. So that alone should also cast doubt. And the problem with this is,
I see.
so let's just think about this for a minute, right? Do you recognize that, hypothetically speaking, for the sake of argument, if what I'm saying is true, that
Mhm.
they got the name of the leader wrong who issued the census, that would be a bit of an issue. That would at least be an inaccuracy, if what I'm saying is
If that
correct.
was the case, then that would be a historical inaccuracy.
Okay, so cool. We're on the same page. We'll just go ahead and forget about the Romans not requiring people to travel because you said maybe they lived there. I don't know. It's kind of in the weeds. It doesn't matter.
I just went
So,
to
but the problem is here is that
Quirinius.
you believe in a divine, all-knowing God, and we are supposed to know that God through the Bible. Furthermore, that God is going to punish people that do not believe in him with eternal damnation. So why is it that God's divine word has inaccuracies in it? Even small, slight inaccuracies like this cast doubt on much larger claims later on. And that is the beginning of the entire breaking point for me when it comes to Christianity. It's not just this verse in Luke either, by the way.
See.
There are plenty of other stories in the Bible in general that have more or less been proven false, or at least have not found any proof to rationally believe that those things actually happened the way the Bible describes.
I see. I guess to me,
Oops, sorry.
the way that I would view that myself is I wouldn't take the Quirinius Wikipedia page as an authority over the Bible on such things.
But the Bible is full of inaccuracies. So even if you were like, hey, actually, Luke was completely correct about this Quirinius thing, why is it that there are a fuck ton of inaccuracies in the Old Testament and in the New Testament as well?
Like what else?
I mean, if we want to talk about the Old Testament, I know in Exodus, there's no evidence that there was ever anybody named Moses. Again, the Egyptians were fairly decent at keeping records. There was no record that they ever had the Israelites enslaved. Furthermore, 600,000 plus Israelites were supposedly freed and traveled across the desert for over 40 years, and yet there's been no archaeological findings or evidence whatsoever. And that is especially damning considering the fact that in that time period, it was very common for people to leave a lot of shit behind. And I don't mean poop. I mean like pieces of wood or pieces of their camp or whatever. They left junk behind. Archaeologists would be able to find something if that event had actually happened the way Exodus described.
So for me, this is, and I can understand like not taking this perspective, but for me, I've seen over the course of my life many claims from the Bible which people said these exact things about. Well, the archaeologists haven't found evidence of that they later found evidence of in my lifetime.
Like,
and so and it's just been proven right over and over again in many different ways. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know that there's a great deal of archaeological findings which were based on the Bible. They were looking like in those places and looking for things based on things which the Bible said. And it's before they found it, everybody was like, well, we don't have evidence for that, so it's not real. Think of like the dodo bird. Okay, so the dodo bird is something which was written about by all the ancients. It was like the sailors would travel around on islands and they'd stop to pick them up because it was a good food source. And all writings of it sort of stopped around, I think, like the 1600s or something like that. But then after that, all the modern scientists basically said that dodos were a myth, a mythological creature. They weren't real because there's zero archaeological evidence that dodo birds ever existed anywhere on the planet at all. And well, then and this is what scientists said for a couple hundred years, and even in modern history, until it turned out they did find evidence of the dodo birds, and it was actually real. And if we just, all the people that just trusted the ancient sources through all the modern scientists' ramblings about it being false, they turn out to be vindicated. They were the smart ones,
in
and
this
the
case,
scientists were.
What do you think the rational way to go about this would be? If they were saying, hey, we have found no archaeological evidence, there's no bones, we haven't found any evidence of the dodo bird actually existing. Let's just go with that. I'll grant you that. I don't know if that's true or not. But if that were the case, what is the rational thing to do? Do we just believe the dodo bird existed until proven wrong? No. You withhold your belief until there is evidence to rationally justify believing. It doesn't mean that you take the position that there was no dodo bird. It simply means that right now there is not enough evidence to come to a rational conclusion that there was.
I can understand your thought process, and at the same time, everyone who followed your thought process turned out to be wrong, and everyone that followed my thought process turned out to be right.
It doesn't matter. What you're doing there is irrational all the same. It doesn't matter if you throw a bunch of shit at the wall and then happen to get something right. What matters is going about assessing claims in a rational way. So if somebody says, I don't have evidence of any of these things in the Bible taking place, I'm not saying, this never happened. Moses is a lie and a myth. I'm not taking that position. I'm simply saying there is not enough evidence for me to rationally believe that this did happen. For now, I'm kind of in the middle. I'm kind of like, I don't really know. But again, if God Almighty, the divine creator of the world, wants me to know him and wants me to have a personal relationship with him, why is he not providing the evidence necessary to rationally believe in his existence?
I see. This kind of comes down to a epistemology thing in like rationalism versus empiricism in a way. You're like, well, our observable reality doesn't show that to be true, and therefore I can't make myself believe it. Whereas with me, I look at so much of the Bible which is true, and things which are written in a way which most people still can't even like write like that today. They don't have thoughts on that level today. It's just astounding how much of that stuff is in the Bible, which is just,
it doesn't matter,
leaps and bounds above everything.
It doesn't matter.
And to me, that's where I can look at the gray areas where it's like things which haven't been proven yet by archaeologists, and I can say, well, it probably will be.
Yeah, that's irrational, like textbook irrational. What you're saying is you're
Well,
taking hold on, what you're saying right now is you're taking a belief that you have no way to rationally justify. You have unjustified belief, but you're just going to keep believing until it's been proven wrong. That's
yeah,
literally the opposite of how we're supposed to go about assessing things in a rational way. If that were
I
the case,
see.
we'd all be believing a bunch of dumb shit.
I see. See, I guess that's kind of the issue is if you take your approach, then even if all the archaeological findings were found and proven and all of this and that and the third, there's really no way to prove the existence of God in like the scientific method type of way, right? Using empiricism, there's no way to prove that.
And
And
that's the
believe me, I
problem.
used to
God
be
should
the
make himself
yeah.
discoverable via the
Well,
scientific
now
method.
that's the issue. That the hubris of humans is thinking that God has to live up to your standards
No,
rather than that
that's
you
not
have to live
hubris
up
at
to
all. It's
God's.
actually hubris to assume that I should just blindly believe in something for no rational or justified reason. I'm not
Well,
saying
no, that
God
wouldn't be
must live up
hubris.
to my exact standards. Unless God makes my, food appear in front of me, then he's not real. No, what I'm saying is that if God created the world, which would then follow that God created logic, God created reason, God created
Mm-hmm.
humans with our brains and our ability to
Uh-huh.
reason, and
Yeah.
yet has exempted himself from being discovered in any demonstrable way by humans.
Mm.
What is that like?
I
That
get
is
that it's I get
ridiculous.
that it's
That's
frustrating.
But you must also understand then that if God is going to punish people because they dared to use their brains that God gave them and be rational when coming to certain conclusions, or withholding belief until it is justified to believe otherwise, then God is inherently unjust as well.
I see. I see. So the issue is that so God did make humans aware of his existence and his knowledge. When it was Adam and Eve, God was walking with them every day. And then humans decided to disobey God and they chose to do like the opposite of what he said. And because of that, now man's fallen nature and all of the issues stemming from that are making things a lot
This
more
is
difficult
such
for us than they
bullshit.
should be.
Again, like if Adam and Eve existed and this was supposed to demonstrate to us that we all have a common human ancestor, then that would further conclude, or at least bring us to a direction of rationally coming to a conclusion that maybe the Bible does have some truth to it and is something that could be believed in certain ways or another. But again, why do we find the complete opposite? Instead, we find that chromosome 5 has demonstrated that we do have a common ancestor, but our common ancestor is an ape-like creature that no longer exists. Why is it that we are unable to find any evidence to support the claims made in the Bible?
Again, it's take you back to the dodo bird. Just because you haven't found the evidence for something yet doesn't mean it's not there.
I
And
didn't
again,
say that.
everybody uses
I'm saying that it's irrational and unjustified for you to believe that it is there.
well, that's again, it's an epistemology question. And look, Plato and Aristotle argued about this a lot on like what's how do you figure out what's real? And I think your issue, which I would again call hubris, is that you think that your method of determining what's real is the only correct one and the
I
superior
don't
one
think
in
it's
every
the
way,
only
and
one.
anything
I think
else
that there's
irrational.
no current mechanism to even test for the supernatural.
Well, right, exactly. And that's what Plato's cave is all about, right? Is that like you couldn't with all of your empiricism, with all of your observable reality and all the logic and reason you could use based off of those things, you still could never really get to the truth if you were in Plato's cave. And
The thing is too that
that's
like
the argument for rationalism over empiricism.
well, what you said a minute ago too is rather telling. That like why is it that we all have a belief in God or an understanding of God? I mean, that's not necessarily true. It really depends on where you're born. People who are born in America are more likely than not to be Christian, but people born in other parts of the world are far more likely to be Muslim than not. Is it just that God is selectively showing himself to the Americans, but not to the people over in Eastern countries or in faraway regions or whatever? Like, how does that
No,
even make sense,
I think
right?
I think God commands all the people who do know the truths to spread it among all the other peoples of the earth.
But no,
So
that
it's
doesn't make
sort of
sense
our
because they're not able to
responsibility
demonstrate that that's
to-
a truth.
I mean, again, it's not in an empiric way. It's impossible to do so.
That's the problem. Why is God playing
get it.
favorites then? Why is God only revealing himself to some people and not revealing himself adequately to other people? If God is choosing to only reveal himself to some people, then what that means is that he is playing favorites, which then would be unjust.
God is kind of playing favorites, and it's a real issue. I get it. It's really tough. It's a really tough pill to swallow that God has a chosen elect group of people which he is choosing to work with more than
This
others.
sounds like a fairy tale right now. You're not even able to demonstrate that a God exists in the first place. And I know that the God that I was taught about when I was growing up, since I was raised extremely Christian, was a loving God that wants a personal relationship with everybody. I'm pretty sure there are verses in the Bible that talks about how God wants everybody to go to heaven. God wants to be with everybody.
But he knows that they're not.
He might know that they're not, but is he actually making it so? Just if he has an awareness of it, because he's omniscient, right? Just if he has an awareness doesn't necessarily mean that he is the one actually pulling the strings. He might be like, all right, I'm going to create little Timmy here, and he's obviously going to be going to hell.
Don't trigger me.
But he's going to be going to hell for sure. But I mean, it's his choice still. He kind of puts his hands up, right? If God wants a personal relationship with us, then why is he not making himself more demonstrable?
I see. I guess the issue comes from that even when God did do that, people still rejected him. So, like, you have all the cities that Jesus went and did miracles in, like, basically all of them. When he like healed all like entire cities from sickness and stuff like that, and then just said, "Hey, I'm God, go and sin no more." They, as soon as he left, they all turned back to their old ways and rejected God.
This isn't an argument. This doesn't matter. Then why would God not show himself again at least for the people who believe? Then they would have far better arguments.
That's I think the issue is that even when God proved, like up to your standards, proved that he exists, people still rejected him, and that's why a faith-based model of choosing his elect is like what he's left with. I think.
I have a question for you. Is there any position on this entire fucking world that could not be justified by faith?
No, that's a very, very solid argument, and it's a good question. And I get why
anything could be justified by faith.
Yeah,
I could say the world is flat, and I just have faith that it is. You could show me every single picture of the world being
it's not flat, it's hollow, so you'd be wrong. But yeah, I get your point.
Well, you can just take anything on faith. So if you can take anything on faith, it's not a good way to come to rational conclusions. Not even close.
We've been listening to Sam Harris, have we?
No, I don't listen to Sam Harris.
Yeah, sure. I caught you, and you know it. So, yeah, I heard him make that exact argument. Like,
I guess great minds think alike. Cool.
Right. You don't just get your opinions from other people smarter than you. That wouldn't be like Hunter Avallone at all, right? So, yeah, look. I get the issue. I get that you can say that like you can just choose to believe anything, and that's bad or whatever. I think that a big part of the disconnect here comes from like reading, like looking for little things like, well, who is this governor at this time, and the Wikipedia page disagrees, rather than like just opening up like the book of John and reading it front to back and realizing how much deep like core level truth is there that
what truth do you think is like a core level truth? And again,
like
this is what you're saying right now is like the definition of unjustified belief. You're saying just ignore all the errors and all the inconsistencies.
According to your epistemological model.
This is not according to any epistemological whatever. This is not this is not based on any type of model. This is literally just how you come to rational conclusions, dude.
No, it's how you come to rational conclusions, and I come to rational conclusions in a way much more like Plato did than Aristotle did.
Why don't
which
you
is
just open
really
up the Quran
difference
then?
here.
Just open up the Quran, read it from front to back, and realize that there's some truth in there, man.
I do actually plan to, and I don't doubt that there is some truth in there. But it's like not. One, I don't know Arabic, and I that's going to take a whole lot. But I would like to read the Quran. I know from a Muslim friend that I've spoken to at length about this that reading it in English is not even close to the same, because like everything like rhymes or whatever, and it's I don't know. But yeah, that's I get your point, which is like that's you could choose to believe anything based on faith. You can look at any book with truth in it and then say, oh well, all the rest of it is true, and that could present a major problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
The
Sure,
thing
it
is,
would create a problem for you because now you have multiple different religious texts that all claim to be from a divine God that all say something different. Now you have to go about figuring out which one is correct, if any of them are correct.
And I guess to me, it's like if that's the biggest, most important question in the world, then that's something worth spending time on and thinking about and looking at really seriously. And not just
So
like
if it's the you're
like,
contradicting
I'm gonna
yourself so
prove this
badly,
wrong
dude.
today.
You're like the
How am I
worst
gonna prove this
spokesperson
wrong?
for God right now. If God exists,
one,
and if hold
I
on,
didn't come on
if
here
God
to
wants us to know Him, then I shouldn't have to go about discovering God that way. I should
but
be
you
able to
don't
go
get to
about this in a
decide what you
rational
should and
way
shouldn't have to
and have
do.
a justified belief that God exists.
So think about it this way: if God is real, then this hubris of like God should be living up to my standards of proof and he should be doing this for me is like completely inverted way of looking at things. If God is real, then what is good, like goodness, is determined by what God thinks is good, not what you think is good.
Okay, wait, before we go into this way, because this is now getting into divine command theory, which is another really fucking brain dead approach. But I first want to make this known. So I believe that certain formal laws of logic are objective. I think that the law of non-contradiction, for example, that is something that would exist whether or not humans exist. I value logic, okay? And so when you have a God, or the belief that you're telling me right now that, well, we should believe in God, we don't know, it might be wrong, but for now we should just go with it, that is actually a logical fallacy in and of itself. That is the argument from ignorance. It asserts that a proposition is true because it has not yet been proven false. That is what you're engaging in right now.
Hold on. Asserting that a proposition is true because it hasn't been proven false is what like the basis of all scientific theory and law. So
what are you talking about? No, that's called a hypothesis. That's why.
No, that's a
no,
theory.
they don't. Wait, holy shit, dude. They don't.
What makes a scientific law?
Oh my God. You realize they don't ever assert it's true. That's the difference of a hypothesis. That's a theory that they then go about trying to falsify. And if they cannot falsify it, it becomes more.
Law?
I'm not getting into the minutia with you on the scientific method and how it's used. What you just said was so telling.
The science and the scientific.
Hold on. What you just said was so telling, dude.
What makes a theory a law?
Do people just assert that it is true? Do scientists say this is true until I can prove otherwise? No, they have a theory.
That is
which
literally what they do.
You don't understand what a hypothesis is.
I'm not talking about hypotheses. I'm talking about scientific law. And
you said every scientist asserts something is true until it's been proven false. A hypothesis is a supposition or proposed explanation made on the basis of limited evidence as a starting point for further investigation.
Okay, I never said the word hypothesis. What is a scientific law?
Wait,
what makes a scientific theory?
Why are you going into the scientific law thing? You said scientists do this themselves. I'm explaining that That's
what I'm describing.
Does the scientific method does the scientific method start with a hypothesis?
What is it? Tell me what that is. You want me to believe in scientific laws, right? Well, what is it?
Does the scientific method? Can you shut up, dude? This has nothing to do with anything.
Are you
do you know how the scientific method works?
Science than you?
Yeah, I'm very mad right now because you just said something so fucking dumb. Literally, God himself would be rolling in his grave. So
it really, like, here, just look it up real quick. You've been like dancing around trying to avoid
Because
saying
you're
you
asking
don't
me an
know what
irrelevant
scientific
question that
law
I don't
is
feel
for
that I
5
need to even
minutes now.
answer. You just said that what scientists do is they go about engaging in the fallacy of ignorance. That is not what they do. They start with an observation or a question, right? And then they do
Yep.
further research.
Uh-huh.
Then it comes to a hypothesis.
Right. And
Then they test it
testing.
with an experiment.
Right.
And
7
then what?
steps. Keep going.
Then they analyze the data and they report the conclusions.
Yep. And then publish their results.
How is this the fallacy of ignorance? Please.
Okay. Here is how. A scientific theory turns into a scientific law because it hasn't been proven wrong for a long time.
Oh my God. You're actually
That's what it
stupid as
means.
shit.
That's
No,
literally
it's not
the difference.
No, the difference is
That's
that you're
literally what that
Oh my
means.
God.
Look it up, dude. Look it up.
Mayo, the difference is that one has been demonstrated to be true. The other is an assertion that something is true simply because it hasn't been proven false.
Hunter, they are assuming that the theory of gravity is true because it hasn't been proven wrong for a long time.
Oh my God, it's not an assumption, it's a demonstration at that point. That's the point of the scientific method, is you're actually trying to demonstrate something.
So the law of gravity is a demonstration.
They can at least demonstrate the effects of gravity. We can't have any demonstration of God.
And I can demonstrate the effects of God.
The fact that, no, you can't. And if you could,
Yeah,
you couldn't
the fact
actually
that
prove that
you're
it was
sitting here
from God.
talking today.
Hold on. We're not moving away from this point until you get this through your skull. This fallacy asserts that a proposition is true just because it hasn't been proven false. If something has
literally what a scientific
No,
law
it's
is.
not. The fact you think this is literally embarrassing for you. If you think Wait, so do you actually think that a formal logical fallacy, the scientific method contradicts a formal fallacy, logical fallacy?
Well, scientific laws aren't a part of the scientific method. That's just a 7-step philosophical program epistemologically to try and figure out what's real. So that has nothing to do with scientific laws. Now, what makes a scientific law is if someone has a hypothesis which has been tested for a really long time and not proven wrong and then turned into a theory, and then if it hasn't been proven wrong for a really long time, then they call it a scientific law.
No, they try to falsify it, my dude. And by trying to falsify it, they try to falsify it. What you're saying is God is real because he hasn't been proven false. The dodo bird existed because we weren't able to prove that it didn't exist. That is not the correct way to go about rational thought. The scientific method says, my idea is that the dodo bird existed. Then they go through another step of trying to prove that wrong. If they're unable to, then they go on to the next part. They're able to demonstrate it with an experiment. They have a demonstration. They have proof and evidence for why they are coming to conclusions. What the fallacy of ignorance looks like, I'll give you an example to help you understand. The fallacy of ignorance is you walk into your home or whatever, and someone's dead on the floor, and so there's 2 people at home, the maid and the butler, and you say, well, I think it was the maid, and you say, well, I'm not able to prove that it wasn't the maid, so I guess it was the maid for now.
It was probably the woman. You'd probably be right.
You realize, though, that is a fallacious way to go about thinking of things, right?
Yes, and how that doesn't apply is because the Bible is not just walking around saying, I believe whatever I want to believe. There is a whole lot of evidence for a whole lot of...
Wait, before we get off of that, I want to talk about this, I do, but I want us to stay on this fallacy of ignorance thing.
Oh, okay.
When you say that it's irrational to say, well, we haven't been able to prove the maid innocent, so therefore I guess it was the maid, that is the fallacy of ignorance. What the scientific method does is it says, maybe it was the maid. Then they go about collecting evidence for it. Then they do an experiment or have some kind of a demonstration. Of course, it wouldn't be scientific method applying to this. Of course, I'm giving an example. They go about actually establishing a conclusion that is reasonable to believe based on the evidence and the experimentation that led to that conclusion. It is not just a blind assertion. It's an assertion what you're making.
And if it hasn't been proven wrong, then they call it a theory. And if it hasn't been proven wrong for a really long time,
it's not
then they call it a scientific law.
No,
and
it's that they were unable to prove it wrong in the scientific method, my friend. You're making an assertion. Do you realize there's a difference between an assertion and actually experimentation, trying to falsify something? And if the hypothesis and the theory continues to hold up, you then go on to the next part.
I'm going to try and work with you here on this. A scientific theory is never proven 100%
Of course. We can't believe anything 100%. Yes.
It is just simply not proven wrong.
It is not proven wrong within the scientific method.
I know it's difficult to wrap your head around this, but what that means is that it's like you use that model from now on because it's the most likely to the truth that you can get so far, right? It hasn't been proven wrong by anything for a long time. It works with all of the models.
This is so incorrect. This is actually like
embarrassingly
correct.
If you go into a science class,
you should just stop talking right now because you're literally proving God doesn't exist because there's no way he would ever create somebody as brain dead as you. This is not how the scientific method works.
You use a whole different formula for gravity that you're like, no, I think in my model I want gravity to be this way. They're going to tell you you're wrong because we know the formula for gravity.
I don't care what some hypothetical scientist says any more than I care about what some hypothetical Timmy dumbfuck says. You are so wrong about this. This is embarrassing. The point of the scientific method is trying to bring us closest to.
You didn't even know what a scientific law is. Why are you trying to speak with authority on this?
Gosh, dude. I'm not claiming to know all of this. I'm simply explaining that what you're saying is completely incorrect. You're saying this. Wait.
I do know all of this.
Mayo, yes or no? Yes or no? Is the scientific method violating a formal law of logic?
No.
Then why are you saying that they're engaged in the fallacy of ignorance? One is an attempt to prove something wrong. One also. Hold on. Wait. I'm not done here. And furthermore, it's not just an attempt It's not just an attempt to falsify. The scientific method also provides us ways to make predictions, right? So if you are able to have a hypothesis, or you do the research, you come to a hypothesis, you then experiment, and that experimentation is able to give a prediction, you then move on to the next part. This is a process of coming to a rational conclusion. The fallacy of ignorance is an assertion. There's nothing there. Right. They didn't start anywhere. They simply say, well, this hasn't been proven wrong yet. No one's proven God doesn't exist, so I guess God does exist. That's not how this works.
Okay, now my turn. And try and follow me here because it's going to be difficult. The scientific method is a good epistemological way to attempt to get to truth. It is, however, not the only way to get to truth, and it's not even the only valid way to get to truth, and it's not even necessarily the most valid way to get to truth. And this is what Plato worked so hard to prove to idiots like you. When he
what are some other
made
ways?
up the
Please
allegory of the
educate
cave.
me.
Wait, okay, so here we go. First off, let me make a better version of your own argument in that the scientific method, a hypothesis, any hypothesis when you're working within that, has to be falsifiable, as you said. And so therefore, there is no way to even attempt to get at the existence of God through the scientific method.
So
it's impossible. It does not fit at all. You cannot do that, right?
So the problem here is that the scientific method has repeatedly been demonstrated to give us the best possible conclusions available. This is why we continue using the scientific method, is because programming talking about the scientific method. Do you hear yourself right now?
You're just not listening. So
because you're not saying anything of substance,
look, I'm getting
dude.
90% of the way, and you're cutting me off again. So just try and listen. I don't know how I rant, okay? I talk in paragraphs. I'm trying not to. So look, it has to be falsifiable. You can't use the scientific method to get to God. I'm not saying the scientific method is false and we should throw it out. I'm just simply saying it's not the only valid way to get to truth. And
so
this
what's
is
another
what
way
Plato's
to get to truth?
cave was all about. When Plato said, look, if you're in Plato's cave, you could use all the scientific method and never get to the full truth. That's the point. That's the argument for rationalism over empiricism. And
I
know
that what I'm saying
your
is the
brain
scientific
is a little
method
bit...
gives us 100% proof of anything?
Well, no. I'm saying it's not the only valid logical way to get to truth. This is the big difference between empiricism and rationalism, which I know you think that it's like a big own that you're the only one who's right here and you know better than everybody and all the greatest philosophers.
The fact that you're saying the scientific method was engaged in a fallacious or in a logical fallacy is just hilarious to me. You clearly don't have an understanding.
That is not what I was saying at all. What I was simply pointing out is that scientific laws are simply things which were not proven wrong for a long, long time. It's not, you don't prove something 100% true, correct?
Okay, first, nothing can be proven 100%. Second of all, Plato was talking about experiencing the world. He wasn't even talking about the scientific method. Lastly, here's the difference. I'm going to keep on saying it, okay? With the scientific method, be quiet. You start by asking a question,
you watch
right?
your mouth, mister.
Is it possible that something exists keeping us here on the ground rather than causing us to float away? Then you do background research. Then you construct the hypothesis. And constructing a hypothesis is not just, again, making an assertion. You are researching. You're doing experimental data. You're collecting.
So
hold on, wait. I'm not done yet.
question.
Please. I don't talk in paragraphs, but I need a little bit more time than this. You are finding evidence to support the claim. Once you get through the testing with an experiment, you then go through and analyze whether or not the procedure that you've established is working, and then you can analyze the data and draw conclusions. And so if the results align with the hypothesis, or if they don't align with the hypothesis, you then move on to figuring out another theory or coming up with a different question. This is why the scientific method still is used today. It's because it is the most valuable and consistently correct way for us to come to the best rational possible conclusions for the world around us. This is why the scientific method is so crucial.
Unless you're in Plato's cave, and then it's not the best.
That wasn't even about the scientific method. Why do you keep saying that? Do you think that if you just say like Plato, you sound like you're really smart?
Plato was literally arguing with Aristotle about exactly this. And Aristotle's philosophy is directly where the scientific method comes from. His empiricism is literally where it comes from. Plato and Aristotle have been trying to hash this out, and the greatest philosophers in history have been trying to do so ever since. And it's still an ongoing epistemological debate, which you can't seem to wrap your head around. If you're in Plato's cave, the scientific method won't get you there. It won't get you all the way to the truth, period. And so therefore, there is another valid way of pursuing and getting to truth.
Did I ever say that the scientific method is the only, the scientific method leads us to the 100% full truth?
And it's also not the only way. And sometimes it won't even get you to the truth, no matter how hard you try with the scientific method. It's not enough.
So what then do you add? What do you add then? Please enlighten me. What do you add?
Rationalism. No, it's not what do you add. It's an entirely different mode
of rationalism in this context. I need a little bit more. You need to elaborate a little more.
Okay, so Plato. So let's go through the cave real quick. Okay, if a bunch of people are chained up in a cave, right, and they're staring at the wall, and they're chained to the wall, and they see shadows on the wall, and they hear noises, using the scientific method, the closest they can get to the truth is that the shadows are making the noises. Now, if one guy gets unchained from the wall and turns around and he sees there's a fire behind them with people around it, then the people are making the noises and the shadows are just the people's shadows. The shadows aren't the real thing. Those aren't what
called doing the background research. Yes, that's called doing the background research.
But those people, using everything that they had, the people that are still chained to the wall, they could do all the background research in the world. They could use all the scientific method as much as they want, and they could never come to the conclusion
Wait,
that there's a fire with people around it
if you're
behind them,
chained
and
to
that's
a
what the
wall-
real world is.
Oh my God. If you're chained to a wall, then yeah, you're probably not going to be doing any background research because you
And
can't, because
this
you're
is-
literally
you
physically
are
chained.
chained.
Why
They
are
could
you
use
bringing
the
this up in
scientific
regard?
method.
Hold on, wait, dude. This is like you're schizo posting in real time, okay? This is not
I'm
applicable.
literally quoting
This
Plato.
is- oh, wow. So big brain, mister. This is
Do you not
completely...
think that you think you're smarter than Plato was? Is that what this is? And you say you don't have hubris. That's hilarious.
Can I explain why the example you
don't
just
have
gave me
hubris,
is
but
literally
you're
so
smarter than
insufferable?
Plato, and
So
Plato
the reason...
is schizo posting.
Okay,
You know what?
you're schizo
Plato was
posting right
schizo
now.
posting,
This
and
is why you're
schizo
breaking
posting is
down.
fake.
You're melting right now.
Schizo
Just
posting
shut
is
the
fake.
fuck up and
Well,
let me explain
I
for a
am
minute.
melting
You want me to
because you
model
don't
it?
understand
Shut the fuck
what's
up.
going on in this conversation.
Mayo, I
Look, I would
perfectly understand
recommend,
what's
like,
going on, and I want to explain why what you
one-
just said is not applicable here. You're
All right,
saying, hey, these people are chained up to the wall, and they see shadows, and they also hear noise, so therefore they come to the conclusion that the shadows are making the noise. That's not the scientific method.
No. It is. So how?
No,
could they
it's
come
not.
To the
They're not
conclusion
able to do
that
background research.
They are doing background research. They just cannot physically observe what's behind them. That's the point. And so doing their background
If it
research,
can't be observed or researched, and
No,
it
it
can't,
can't
then
be
it
because
cannot
they
lead
can't
to a
see it.
construction of a hypothesis. Therefore, it is
Look.
not following the scientific method. Yes.
I get that you haven't heard of Plato's cave before, but let me make it clear for you what he was saying, because you're misunderstanding the premise. They can't see behind them. They can't see the fire behind them. They cannot observe it. And so you can do the observation, you can do the background research, but the hypothesis that there is something behind them which they cannot observe, the scientific method would never get them there.
Why?
Okay? Because you can't prove it. It's not falsifiable.
Wait, if there's something behind you making noise, is it not able to be proven because you're chained to the wall?
No, they think that, again, it's like you cannot observe the things behind you. It's not a falsifiable claim. And therefore, the scientific method cannot get you there.
Why are they unable to
Period.
observe what's behind them?
Because they're chained to the wall.
Okay,
That's
this is
the-
why
that's the
this
point
doesn't
of the
make
thought
sense at
experiment.
all.
It's, well, I get
They're
that
not
you
able
can't
to apply
wrap
the
your head around
entirety of the
a simple
scientific
thought
method, of
experiment.
course.
I get that you can't wrap your head around a thought experiment. Look, when the other lefties see this later, they're going to be like embarrassed for you that you don't understand the premise, the basic premises of Plato's cave. I'm trying to help you out.
I don't need
okay?
to understand all
So-
of this to understand that
well,
the,
no,
the
you do.
yes, I
because
do.
I'm trying
No,
to
I don't, because
describe
of
to you
the
philosophy.
hey,
I'm trying.
what you're saying right now isn't abiding by the entirety of the scientific method.
Literally a philosophical method, an epistemological method of how to get to truth. That's what the scientific method is. And this is
the example you're giving me doesn't use that.
That's exactly my point. There's got to be another way to get to that truth. And again, the scientific method requires a falsifiable claim. If they're like, well, we can't look behind us, so you're just schizo posting, talking crazy shit about shit behind us. If the guy who was unchained from the wall and saw behind them, he went to tell all the other people, look, you can't actually see the real world. All you see is shadows of the real world. They would say, you're schizo posting. They would say, you can't prove that to us. That's not a falsifiable claim, and we can't use the scientific method to get it, and therefore what you're saying is bullshit.
No,
That's what
then what you're saying is not rational to believe.
Method.
That is what it's saying. Second of all, if they're not able to fully and adequately observe, you know what would help them in this case? Being able to use the scientific method.
No, you need a falsifiable claim for the scientific method. How many times do I have to say that?
What is the claim that's not falsifiable in your example?
That there's something behind you that you can't see that's the actual real world, and all you're seeing is shadows of the real world. They can't prove it. They can't prove it wrong. They cannot prove it wrong.
So then it would be wrong for them to
observe the real reality. They can't. They're chained to the wall. They can't falsify that claim. They cannot prove it wrong. It's impossible to test the claim that there's something behind them that they can't see. And so therefore they would say that's schizo posting, that's bullshit, using empiricism, using the scientific method. We cannot get to that truth. And you can choose to believe on faith that the real world is behind you and that these are all just shadows.
If you even had an understanding of what if in this thought experiment, if you even had an awareness of what shadows were and the real world, you would have first had to have some kind of an experience with the real world.
Yes, absolutely. And again, it's like I'm not saying there's no value in empiricism. You're saying there's no value in rationalism.
No, what you're describing right now is not rationalism. If
It
they are
is,
chained
it
to a
is.
wall
You
and all they
cannot
ever see are
observe-
shadows, the rational conclusion is what we are seeing right now appear to be shadows, asserting that the rest of the world is like this, or if you've never seen the rest of the world in the thought experiment, the rest of the world is not like this, that would be irrational because you are unjustified in coming to that conclusion.
That's exactly my point, is that that's what the people chained to the wall would say. You're the people chained to the wall right now. You're saying you can't prove God false. It's not a falsifiable claim, and therefore it's not worth even talking about that there's a fire behind us with people around
I'm
it.
saying that if
But
you
I'm
cannot
telling
prove,
you,
if you
it
can't
is.
falsify, I'm saying if you can't falsify God, it's irrational and unjustified to believe that a God exists.
Right, just like the people chained to the wall saying it's irrational and unjustified to say that there's a fire with people around it behind us. That's my point.
Wait, if they're chained to a wall and there's a fire behind them, I know that you're missing twisting Plato's cave, because I've read about it and I'm reading about it even now, and you're completely twisting this.
Well, let's hear it.
So if you are chained to a wall and you see people dancing around behind you, again,
You don't see them. You don't see them.
or you see
had
the
your
shadows.
chain
You
facing
see the
the wall.
shadows, right?
Yeah, the shadows on the wall because you're chained facing the wall. You can't.
So what are and help walk me through this like I'm two, okay? Well, I'll get on your level. How then, or what is the rational conclusion they could come to here?
The only rational conclusion that they could come to using the scientific method and empiricism, not being able to observe behind them, is that the shadows are making the noises. And the reason for that is...
No, that's
saying
not
that
actually
there's
the answer. The answer would be we don't know, and if they had any experience with shadows, they would know shadows don't make noises.
They don't have experiences with shadows. They've been chained to the wall their whole lives.
You realize
So
you're
look,
citing rationalism, which is the belief or theory that opinions and actions should be based on reason and knowledge, rather than on
Yes.
religious belief or emotional
No.
response.
No, that's not what rationalism means. Rationalism, in a philosophical sense, is like, look up rationalism like in philosophy. I bet there's a Wikipedia page for that. It's as opposed to empiricism. You would learn this in a philosophy 101
No,
class.
it's that the rationality that you have is going to be limited based on your own personal experience. So if you're chained to a wall and you see shadows and you hear noises, again, for this thought experiment to even work, you would need to have an understanding of what shadows were. And if you had an understanding of what shadows were, you would also know that shadows don't make noise.
Right, but the people who grew up chained facing the wall their whole lives would not have experiences with shadows. To them, the shadows would be all they know. That would be the real
And
world.
what you're demonstrating
All
is
they
the
know
need for the
is
scientific method,
shadows
correct?
and noises. No, I'm demonstrating the flaws in the scientific method. Because
No
look,
scientific method has been applied here to Plato's cave.
Here, give me like 30 seconds to describe the situation, because we're talking past each other and you're not understanding the premises of the argument, so we're not able to have the actual discussion. The people grew up chained to the wall their whole lives, facing the shadows. Shadows are all they can see. They cannot look behind them, and therefore, the idea that there's a fire with people around it behind them is an unfalsifiable claim. It cannot be proved wrong because they can't observe that part of it. And so, given everything that they could observe and falsify using the scientific method, the best conclusion they could come to is the shadows are making the noises. They don't know what shadows are. They don't know shadows are shadows. It's just the things. They just see figures on the wall.
So in a limited environment, they wouldn't be able to, the scientific method would not lead them to a rational conclusion. That's what you're saying.
Well, it just wouldn't lead. It would be rational, given that that's. And again, I'm not saying that it's irrational. I'm not saying that empiricism is irrational. These are like philosophical terms, and I get why that it's confusing, because it's not. I'm not saying it's irrational as opposed to rationality. Rationalism, like with a capital R, is a whole other thing in philosophy, which is basically the idea that using reason more than empiricism, more than observing the natural world, is a better way to get to truth.
In this case, you would have the ability to, hypothetically, if you were unchained, view the natural world.
Right. But here's the thing. What if nobody could get unchained? This is the situation we find ourselves in the real world, which is if you and I we're chained to the wall facing the shadows. And
Yeah,
I'm
and they
telling
cannot
you,
use the scientific method. This is not the scientific method. What this is having limited or an environment that limits your ability to even do
which
background
is the
research.
world we live in. That's the world we live in. Realize that this is a direct allegory for God.
The world that we live in is not comparable to growing up chained to a fucking wall. That
And
is
I'm telling you it
ridiculous
is.
right now. No, it's
Okay,
not.
okay, here.
All of this allegory
I get
literally exists still in the natural world. So if they're
get where
chained
you're
up,
coming
hold on, if they're chained up to a wall,
Don't
then
you
they are
just-
in a context in which they are not able to further do any background research. They can't test with an experiment. They see what they see, and
Well,
they come to the
can.
best conclusion they can based on the very limited sight that they have
Right.
of a situation. That is
That's
not
what
the
I'm
same
saying.
as the scientific method.
No. They could use literally use the 7 steps to try and get to reality. It just, with their limited information, it's not enough to get you to the truth, which is exactly my point. Look, the reason why Plato came up with this idea is to prove what Plato believed is that this isn't the real world. Okay? He believed this is the shadow world, and you and I are chained facing the wall. And he was trying to tell everybody there's way more than that, which you can't prove wrong. Nobody can observe it. He didn't say, like, I got unchained from the wall and I saw it all. He's
So he's
saying
making
that
a claim that he
he's saying-
cannot
yes,
justify.
Yes, exactly.
So it's
but
irrational.
It would be the truth. In Plato's cave, it would be the truth. And that's the point.
It doesn't.
If you
Holy
and I
shit.
have
That doesn't
limited
matter, dude. One,
It-
this is not analogous to God's existence, not even
It is,
slightly. No, it's
correct.
not, because in this case, you can hear people and you can see things in front of you. God doesn't give us anything that we can hear or anything that we can see. So that we don't even have that to begin with.
Sorry, to say that again.
In this hypothetical, in Plato's cave, you can still see shadows and still hear something. You are not able to see or hear anything in regards to God. If anything, this is a more comparable to religious thought, which is, well, I don't know what this thing is. I don't know how to see it. I don't know how to experiment. So I'm just going to go ahead and believe that this is the case. That is not justified belief.
No, that's
Even if
exactly
you're
my
correct
point.
in law, even if you're correct, even if you somehow happen to guess correctly, it's still irrational and unjustifiable in that belief.
Now, see, here's where this is exactly, you stumbled upon exactly the reason I went down this rabbit hole with you. So we can now move the ball forward. What I'm saying is that hypothetically, if we were in that situation, if that's directly analogous to the situation that we're in, that we don't have all the facts, we cannot possibly observe, like, what's actually real and all of that, it would seem crazy and irrational to all the people using the scientific method and empiricism to try and get to truth. The guy using purely reason instead of empiricism to try and get to truth, he would be the only one that was right. You could call it irrational, but he would be the
It's not
only
about-
one that
hold
got
on.
to the truth.
It's not about even being right or, quote, being
It's about
wrong.
getting to the truth.
It's, yes, in a justified way, just asserting that this is the way things are, and then you find out later, oh, what do you know, I was actually right. That is not at all justified belief. How many times do I need to tell you this? If you're chained up to a fucking wall, and then somebody says, no, I think that there are people back there. No, well, we can't see that.
That would be crazy, right? It would be crazy. That would be schizo posting, because people would be like, how could you believe that? How can you say it? Prove it to me. And he can't. It would be irrational, right? It would be crazy. He would be schizo posting. But he would be right. He would be the only one that's right.
It's about coming to what is right based on justified belief. Do you understand that? So, for example,
it's
hold
about
on.
the truth,
Wait,
no matter
back
what.
when we used to believe that the world was flat, I could just say, you know what? No, I actually think the world is round. Hunter, why do you believe that? Well, I had a dream from God. I would be right, but it doesn't mean that belief that the world is round at the time is justified.
I understand where you're coming from. And the reason why you think that is because you have been trained into an empiric mode of thinking.
Oh my
God. And again, I'm not saying
You're
like,
dumb
oh,
as
this is
shit,
brainwashing.
bro.
Hold on. Let me just get this sentence, because I'm not just trying to insult you here. An empiric mode of thinking is not like useless. It's a good way. We've used the scientific method to get to so many things which are true, and it's a valid way to approach truth in many ways. The rationalism empiricism argument is still ongoing because both of them are valid in their own ways. If we were in Plato's cave, the guy using rationalism over empiricism would be the only one that's right. And again,
I don't know how many times I need to tell you this.
Yeah,
it's not about whether or not they are right. It's about whether or not they came to that conclusion in a justified way. I want you to answer yes or no question here for a minute, okay?
Okay.
Yes or no, if I am living in a time where people believe the world is flat, and I say, no, I think the world is round because I rolled number 7 on a dice, is that unjustified to believe that thing?
Well, that's unjustified even according to rationalism. It's not a good example. If you use
That's what you're doing with God.
If you use pure reason without empiricism, and you came about in a rational, logically sound way the conclusion that the world is round, that would be justified belief.
Yes.
And
you cannot do that with God.
No, again, here's the point. You can do that with the fire behind the cave, according to
You cannot do that with God, dude. You cannot come to a justified belief that God exists based on what you just said right here and right now.
In Plato's cave, you couldn't come to a justified belief that there's a fire behind you.
Yeah.
That's my point.
So what?
Now realize
it's not about being right or being wrong. It's about coming to a justified belief.
So, epistemology is the study of how do you know what is true, right? Metaphysics is the study of how do you know what's real. Epistemology is how do you know what's true. The whole point of Plato's thought experiment was to point out that there are situations where the scientific method, which stems from an empiric way of thinking, is not the best way to figure out what's true. It is not the only way to get
according to the example you gave me, the best way would just be guessing.
No. It would be reason.
And reason in this case is what? No. For you to reasonably say, you know what? I think that there is a fire behind me. You would have to have an understanding of what a fire was, how fire acted, what fire felt like or sounded like. We have none of that with God. So even in your own thought, even in your own thought experiment, the big Plato's cave shit, it still is not applicable to God because we don't know who God is. We don't know what God looks like. We don't know how God behaves. There's no consensus on God.
It sounds like or feels like or anything either. It's exactly directly.
Then how would they come to a conclusion that it was fire if they don't even know what a fire is to begin with?
That's the thing, is they wouldn't, using an empiric way of thinking. Only the rationalism guy would be able to get to the bottom of it at all. I'm not saying he definitely
How would he be rational to just say it was a fire? How would he know?
I mean, again, this is he could only figure it out using a rationalistic mode of thinking. I'm not saying he definitely would using a rationalistic mode of thinking. You could probably use that mode of thinking to get to all sorts of conclusions, which are not true as well. But the point is, it is the only way to get to the truth in that scenario. It's the only way.
Okay,
There's no
cool
other
story,
one.
bro. But all you've demonstrated is that one, God does not fit that, and two, it would not be reasonable or justified to come to a conclusion based on virtually nothing if it was you just guessing that it was a fire behind you. Or if you were just assuming, you would first have to have an understanding of what a fire was. Am I correct or not? Yes or no?
You would not have to have a previous understanding of what a fire was in order to guess that there's a light source behind you, which is now casting the shadows. That's something that you could figure out using reason. You could figure it out.
Wait, you're saying you've never experienced... Wait, you're saying you've never seen fire in your life.
Right.
How would you then come to a conclusion that it was fire behind you?
That's exactly my point. To bear with me here. What God is like the whole, like a main talking point about Christians is like we can't possibly understand it. That guy chained to the cave couldn't possibly understand what a fire is, but like to know that there's something there which has caused the shadows to be there behind them, is something they could figure out. You wouldn't fully
Yes, but they wouldn't be able to come to the conclusion that it was fire.
You couldn't fully
So
understand.
you can't come to the
what fire
conclusion that it's
is.
God.
Gotta let me talk for more than like 3 seconds at a time.
You're butchering the
you wouldn't-
allegory, and you're actually disproving yourself. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've written many papers on this and been told by my professors that
Wow.
I'm the only one that gets it in the entire class.
Wow.
So just bear with me here, okay? The fire, you wouldn't understand the true nature of fire and how it works and all of that stuff, okay? You wouldn't be able to understand all the inner workings of combustion and the molecules and how fire plays out and all of that. You wouldn't be able to understand it. Just like we can't understand the nature of God. We can't understand God at all. But you can know that the fire is there. You can know that there's something there doing
something
that.
there
So riddle me this.
is not
riddle
the same.
me this, dude. Riddle me this. Where did life come from? How did a planet turn into an animal for the first time?
Hold on. Wait. Knowing that something is there in regards to I can see with my eyes that there are shadows and there appears to be some light. That is a rational conclusion. That's justified.
Yeah.
It is not justified to assume that it is fire. Just like for you, you might be able to say, something seems fishy here, something strange. Therefore, I'm going to just decide it's God. That's what you're doing. You're making an illogical leap.
Understand that you're saying that the only guy who would be right in that scenario is irrational and justified and crazy. You're the guy chained to the wall that he was making fun of, dude.
No, I'm not. Because in your analogy, there exists light, something that can be observed. And the only rational and justified thing you could come, or a conclusion you could come to there, would be there is a light that appears to be behind me. Not that it's fire. Just some kind of light. Something seems to be behind me that is making light. There is something behind me that is contradicting the darkness that I have known all my life. But you would not be rational to just assume that it's fire. Couldn't you just come to the wait? Couldn't you come to an assumption that maybe it's the sun?
You could, and that's why I said rationalism is not always 100% guaranteed to always get you to the truth. But it is the only way that you could possibly get to the truth. Empiricism couldn't get you to fire.
You wouldn't even know you were actually. You wouldn't even know if you had successfully reached the truth.
If you just that right there is the nature of faith.
This is the nature of what you're doing right here and right now. You're the guy chained to the wall, and you witnessed the. Hold on. Shh. I don't care about faith. You already acknowledged that faith is a shit way to go about determining truth.
I'm explaining why it's not right now.
No, you're not. You're explaining that in order for faith to even be considered, you would first have to go about believing something that is unjustified, which is therefore illogical. It's irrational. And that's what you're engaged in. Hold on. Just shut up for 5 seconds. You are the dude who is chained to the wall, and you see the light. And rather than stopping there and saying, I see a light, the most rational thing I could say is that something is here that contradicts the darkness, but I don't know what it is. That's the rational answer. Instead, you're the guy going, you know what? Fuck it. I think it's the sun. Well, how do you know that? Well, you got to take it on faith. That's you right now.
I understand why that's frustrating. And I understand that it's frustrating that it won't always get you to the truth. I understand that you could use rational modeling in order to get to false answers, which you could think are true. However, you definitely can't get to the truth using purely empiricism without rationalism with a capital R instead. That's you could not possibly get to the truth. However,
regardless,
rationalism
what you're giving me right now, this
way
analogy you've set up is not reasonable, and it certainly does not justify belief in a God.
The father of all modern philosophy set it up.
Regardless, this does not justify God. This does not justify having faith in God.
It doesn't justify God, but it does justify. What I'm trying to explain here is that it's the only way that if you and I are chained to the wall, right? If the world of forms, which Plato talked about, is real and this is just the shadow world, right? That would be the only way to get to that truth, okay? And just like that, God is the same way as the fire. Is like you could not. You're right. that it's easy to be wrong about it.
So
But
it
you
would be
definitely can't get
unjustified to
there.
believe in God.
You definitely can't get there. It would be unjustified if you're trained in an empiric way of thinking and you think that all rationalism outside of that is false.
What is a
automatically.
justified way outside of quote-unquote empiricism that you could therefore come to the conclusion reasonably that God exists?
That's exactly what philosophers have been talking about for thousands of years. You stumbled
And
on
there's a
big
reason
question.
why they've been talking about it for thousands of years and don't seem to come to a fucking answer. It's
And they're not
because
just
the
saying,
scientific
and they're not
method
just
and
saying
empiricism
that
is
everyone's
the...
wrong but them, like you are.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that it's... No, I'm saying that I'm justified in my beliefs, and you're positing an excuse, essentially, as to why you should be able to just believe whatever you've happened to guess and then just, you know, take it on faith, bruh. That is not justified belief. That's all I'm saying. You don't have a justified belief in believing that there is a fire behind you. You only are justified in believing that there is light there. That's it.
Okay, here's the bottom line. Again, epistemology is not about just justified belief. It's about how do you get to truth? It's about how do you know what is true? And the rational guy, the rationalism guy, would be the only one that could possibly figure out what is true in that scenario.
How?
Because in an empiric mode of thinking, you need a falsifiable claim, which the fire just doesn't fit within because you can't observe it. Just like
So
God.
how would you be justified in believing there was a fire?
You would not be justified from an empiric point of view and mode of thinking. You would not be. And that's what you're stuck in right now. You're in a box and you're like, your mode of logic doesn't fit within my box, even if it would be the only way to get to truth. And so therefore you can't do that.
Okay,
so
like, okay, well, what you're telling me right now is I have a rational way to assess
more than little mind games.
What else is there? What is another method to come to truth? What you're telling me right now sounds like somebody just guessing.
I understand why it seems like that to you, but realize that men smarter than you,
I'm trying to understand you, bro.
You're not the opposite.
How are you coming to a justified belief that there is a fire behind you?
You couldn't from an empiric point of view.
So how are you coming to any kind of belief that you find rational?
Because you can use a rational model to try and explain the situation using unfalsifiable claims. You can't do that with empiricism. That's the point. You could never get there with empiricism.
You're demonstrating the problem with this. You are not able to even give me an explanation as to how you can be rational in believing there is a fire behind you. You are not even able to do this. This is the exact problem with an unfalsifiable claim. I could just as easily say, you know what? Actually, there are fairies that visit me every night, okay? And, you know, that's just what it is. This is a contradiction of what it means to actually be a rationalist, okay? Knowledge is justified belief. It is justified belief in what is true, or at least in what you believe to be true based on justification.
And a rational model.
How would you decide? How would you conclude there's a fire? You need to answer this.
You can conclude there's a fire by using a rational mode of thinking to try and understand how events could take place. You could say to yourself, there's a light source which is created. I mean, again, it would be a major shot in the dark. You could say there's a light source created by combustion behind us, which is causing shadows from other beings which you don't know exist, which are affecting the world that we see, and that's what the shadows are. That rational, logical model would be way closer to truth than anything the empiricists
That's not what you
could
said
possibly
before. You said it was
figure
fire.
out.
You said they could decide that it was fire.
It would be, again, maybe not like they would understand fire completely and fully as much as we do now, just like you can't fully, completely understand God as a
I can't even understand God at all. At least in this analogy, you can see light.
Huh?
At least in this analogy, you can see light. What you're telling me,
Yeah,
you're
and
just
you
you're
can
you're
see
you're
the effects of
restating what
God in
I
the
already
same
said,
way.
my dude.
And
I
this is the
said
same
that if
thing.
you were chained to the wall and you saw fire and shadows, or excuse me, light and shadows, you would be justified in believing that there appears to be a light source behind you and there is something moving around on the wall. Maybe it's a shadow. That would
No,
be
not with
your.
empiricism. No, it's an unfalsifiable claim. You can't do it. Scientific method doesn't work with that.
Wait, if you're
Period.
chained to the
Period.
wall and you can see with your own two eyes that there is a light source, you yourself
You can't see the
individually
light source.
would be justified in
can't
believing
see
that
the
there is
light
a light source.
Understand, you can't see the light source. The light source is like,
It's behind you, right? Isn't that what's creating
yeah, right, and you cannot.
That's what's
observe
creating
it.
the
So that's-
shadows.
so saying that there is a light source is an unfalsifiable claim. Can't be proved wrong because nobody can observe a light source. And just like you see the
You can
effects
see
of
the
God,
light.
hold on,
That's the
and
first
just
start of
like-
empiricism.
And just like you see all of the effects of God existing in the world by the way that
Oh
things
my
are,
God.
but you cannot see the force which is making it all come into being. You can see the effects of it, just like you can see
No.
that there is like you can
The
see if there's
difference is
shadows
that
on
what
the
you're
wall.
saying is you can see the effects of God, but you're just assuming that it's God. In this case, you can
You're
see the
assuming
effects
that
of
it's
a light
fire.
source, and you can actually see that. You can witness it with your eyes.
You
There
can't
cannot
witness the
wait for
light
you
source.
to
That's
even
the
have a
point of-
basic understanding. You would have to know that if shadows can't exist without light, all you would know is that there is some kind of a light source behind you. That's all you would know.
You would have to assume that it's unfalsifiable. That's you. I don't know why you're ignoring this.
Dude,
It's
if
an
you're chained to a
unfalsifiable
wall,
claim.
virtually everything is unfalsifiable.
Well, that's the whole point. Is that we're chained to the wall right now, you and I.
No, we're not.
know,
In this
even
example,
Brittany
you can
understood
see
this.
the light. You are
You
not
know,
able to demonstrate this with God.
Even Brittany understood this quicker than you, man. You know that?
It's because Brittany's very gullible and easy to convince,
Oh,
whereas
man.
I'm actually trying to go about this. Again, I'm assessing what you're saying as best as I can. And unfortunately, what you are saying doesn't make any sense. You're definitely being dishonest, and these are bad reasons to believe in God. How would you be justified if you were chained to the wall in believing that there was fire behind you?
You, from an empiric point of view,
From
you could.
any point of view, how would you
From a
be justified?
rationalistic point of view, from a rationalistic point of view, you don't require an unfalsifiable claim. So you absolutely could come up with a rational model that includes a light source behind you. It's an unfalsifiable claim that there's a light source behind you. You cannot
The
use a scientific method on
unfalsifiable
that.
claim is the problem. You realize that,
That's
right?
what I'm saying. That's what from an empiric point of view, not from a rationalistic point of view. That is the whole thing.
Rationale
I'm trying to get you to
is belief or knowledge based on justified truth.
No, you are not understanding that it's a philosophical term. It doesn't just mean being rational. It means deriving knowledge from rational modeling
So,
and not observation
if you
of
are chained
the
to the
natural
wall,
world.
how are you able to rationally or in any way justifiably believe that there is a light source behind you?
In the same way that Einstein modeled general relativity, even though he was a modeling scientist instead of an observing scientist. So like you cannot, like he modeled those things rationally. He wasn't observing things. He didn't figure it out that way. He modeled it. He came up with a rational model, which makes sense. And actually, what made him so famous is that his rational models, the empirical scientist, he wasn't allowed to be one of those because he was a Jew, actually, but he kept being proven right. The physical scientists would take his models and then they would test for them the things
Yes.
which were falsifiable.
There you go.
in-
Yeah. You would
You
test
think-
for them. Yes.
Well, no. Here's what you're missing. You can't test unfalsifiable claims, but it doesn't mean that unfalsifiable claims don't work with rational modeling. They don't work with empiric testing of the natural world. But the things that
How
he
can it
came
be
up
rational?
with, he was modeling things which were falsifiable because he really wanted to be like a physical observing scientist. He just couldn't be because he was Jewish.
No,
So
the
he was coming
difference
up
here
with
is that
falsifiable
Einstein
claims.
posited a question. He then went on to create a hypothesis, and then it had predictive power when it came to the 1919 observation of the solar eclipse. So I'm sorry, my dude, that still was abiding by some level of the scientific method. It wasn't
Right,
as
and
if
that's- of
Einstein
course
just
he was.
randomly guessed,
You're-
and then
you're
all of a
missing-
sudden he was like, hey, look, I just, you know
You're
what, I
missing-
turned out to be right. I guess I guessed
Yeah.
correctly.
Yeah, no, he did. That's literally what happened. Guess what? All the scientists, all the modeling scientists were guessing, and he happened to be the one that his models were proven right. Again,
He used
he
the
only
scientific
here's what-
method.
because he was only using falsifiable claims because he knew that was what he wanted to work with.
Yes,
However, even
which
Albert
is rational
Einstein,
then.
even Albert Einstein wasn't saying that unfalsifiable claims are like impossible to ever be true. He wasn't saying that. Those were just the only ones he
I
was
didn't
working
say
with
they
were falsifiable.
weren't true. That would also be the wrong claim. I didn't say no God exists. I said that there doesn't appear to be enough evidence to justify belief in God. Why are you not
It's
able to
not
understand
evidence.
this?
That's what unfalsifiable
For me,
means.
no. For you to believe in Einstein's theory, there are observations that we have that demonstrate this. There are ways, in regards to
it
empiricism
only
even,
made
that you are
falsifiable
able... No, you are able to use that claim for predictive power. The belief in God is nothing. It's a guess with no rational or justified reason for believing in it.
No, that's
And all
what
you're
people
saying
said
is,
about,
yeah, but I
You
could
understand-
be right. You're right. You know that? You could be right. But guess what? I could be right when I say I have faith that Bigfoot exists, or I have faith that we were actually created by aliens. I too could be right, but it doesn't matter. It's about whether or not your belief is justified.
right, and it could be, again, Albert Einstein, his models were not they were not observed at the time. Now he only made
That's the point of the
false-
scientific
look,
method. Oh my
bro,
God.
You gotta give me more than 3
You're
seconds.
you're
at a time.
so
I'm trying to
stupid.
work with
Everything
you
you're
here.
saying is actually like
You're-
embarrassing you, dude.
Like your brain is so small you can't understand these things. I bet your audience is embarrassed for you. Look,
I'd rather have a small brain than a small...
claims.
Sorry, go ahead.
Look, you're not understanding even why I brought up Albert Einstein. Okay, you're not even understanding that. So look, what he did was rational modeling. Now he did rational modeling about falsifiable claims so that they could be proven true or false by the physical scientists, the observing ones that worked with that stuff. Okay, that's what he chose to do with rational modeling. But rational modeling does not have to include falsifiable claims. It doesn't have to. Okay, and so a better rational model, let's say if you are working with unfalsifiable claims and it'll never be proven true or false, but you're talking about things that can't be proven, then there are better and worse rational models for trying to get to the truth. So if I said, look, my chair is a little bit further to the left than I thought it would be, okay? I could say that either fairies came and moved my chair while I looked away for a second, or I could say that I pushed it a little farther than I thought. I can't prove it either way, but one rational model is better than the other one, and therefore closer to truth. And so you work when you don't have falsifiable claim, when you don't have evidence, all you have is better and worse rational models.
So you're saying it would be silly to go with the unfalsifiable claim in that analogy?
No, they're all unfalsifiable. They're all unfalsifiable because I can't prove what happened to my chair. I have no way of testing what happened to that.
You realize that also with when it comes to a rational model, you're still using facts, information. There was math involved when it came to what Einstein was doing. And then it was confirmed via predictive power.
Those are only with things that can be confirmed, okay?
It was, hold on, wait.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, and that's why it's reasonable to believe it. You're saying there's some way to rationally believe something that cannot be confirmed.
Yes, there is a way to rationally believe something which cannot be confirmed. Yes.
I don't even know what to tell you. I don't know what to say. You aren't even able to explain to me why it's rational. What makes that rational?
Okay, so here's the thing. You're the type of person that wouldn't have believed in black holes 20 years ago, okay? Because black holes weren't proven true, and it was basically like a 1 in a bajillion chance that you could possibly prove them true. Albert Einstein came up with a rational model which included black holes, and he had this like theory of a certain type of waves which would exist in a certain way in the event that two black holes collided, right? And this was like basically the best. The fact that it fit in the rational model was the best evidence that black holes exist. That's all there was. You grew up being taught that black holes exist because it fits the rational model, not because they proved it.
But what?
There wasn't
why
proof
does
of
it
black
fit
holes.
that rational model? Because it
There
went through
wasn't-
steps. Because it went through steps of
went through
analysis.
rational
It was a
steps. There was no
mathematical thing.
There was
They were
no
putting it
testing.
through a level of scientific research in
there was
order to
no
come to
testing.
that conclusion. And
No,
that's
there
why
was
you
no
don't even
testing.
learn that black holes are
weren't-
100% real. Instead,
Testing.
you learn about it as a theory, or you learn about it as this is what we think could be the case. That's the difference, is that you
Actually-
again have mathematics. You have ways to analyze a claim like
Yes.
black holes. You don't
Yes,
have
things
any of that
outside
for
of
justifying the
testing.
belief in God.
Yes, things outside of testing, because the scientific method wasn't involved in black holes, right? Wasn't involved at all. There's no
The scientific
testing.
method was still used to
No,
further
it wasn't.
research. Yes, it
There
was.
was no
You
testing.
used facts. You used information. You used mathematics. You
That is what's
analyzed it.
called rationalism
also had-
instead of empiricism, my friend. That's what that is. Rational models, and it fit in the rational models. And you use your reason, you use your thinking, you use all of that. But there was no testing.
Okay.
And yet,
Can you do this
everyone
with
acted
God?
as if black holes are real.
Can you do this with God?
Yes.
How? Please.
Again, because you can look at where did life come from. You can look at why are things the way that they are. You can look at human nature and nature of animals. You can look at everything about the world that exists, and you can try and come up for explanations as to why that is.
So the
Now, it
world
turns
began
out-
from the Big Bang, which again, we
Okay,
have
and then how
evidence
did it turn
of.
into life?
Hmm?
And then how did it turn into life? Do you know that
How
there
did
is
what turn
no
into life?
theory-
When the Big Bang
You know,
happened, there were. Hold on. Let me explain this to you, okay? When the
Okay.
Big Bang happened, there were trillions of galaxies that were blasted across the entire universe.
Wow.
The odds
I'm
of.
soy jacking right now.
Can you stop? The odds of there being one planet that is just close enough to the sun that could facilitate evolution is extremely probable, actually.
Wait. You think evolution is the theory of how life began?
What happened was there was the Big Bang, which then
Mhm.
led to an expansion of the galaxy. And yes,
Right.
that is evolution. That's how life started to become. There were chemicals, there was matter, and this is then what happened
And how
and
did
moved
that turn into
forward.
life? Do you understand that evolution is not a theory of how life began?
Do
It
you
doesn't
understand
involve
that
that.
just saying God did it doesn't give us anything either?
It's a better rational model than the atheists have.
No, it's not.
I know it's like this is gonna be a heartbreak to you, but evolution does not include a theory of how life began.
You're
That
right,
is
and I will
not what
concede
it's
that
about.
to you, Mayo. You're right. It doesn't
Okay, so
actually
give me a
explain
better
the
rational
origin of
model.
life. But you know what? Hold on.
Okay.
It doesn't explain the origin of life. You're right. I was wrong about that, and I will fully admit
Okay.
that I was wrong about that. However, you are
No.
irrational and unjustified in just saying God did it. Why couldn't I say aliens did it?
Now, here's the thing. Give me a better rational model that has a more complete understanding that works with how everything is than the Christian worldview. There isn't one. There isn't one. Nobody has come up with one ever.
So
if
you're-
you do it right
so
here,
you're back
you'll
to
win
the
a Nobel Prize.
You're back to the fucking fallacy of ignorance. So because there's
What?
no
I
current
just went
explanation,
through the whole
you're
thing
just
about it.
filling in the gaps with God. That's what you're doing right now.
I'm not filling in gaps at all. It's a rational model with which there isn't a better one. There isn't one. Give me one.
So then
It's-
it's
again,
wait,
that's what
if
all
there isn't
scientific
one, then
theories
you are not justified in just making an assertion that it was God that did it.
That's what people said about black holes to Albert Einstein, dude.
Oh my
It's like you're
God.
just making things up, dude. It's like, well, he was right. using his rational
You're
modeling
engaged in God
without
of the gaps.
empiricism,
You're engaged in
without
irrational thought. You are not justifying anything that you're saying. And again, even though I was willing to completely walk back and admit that I was wrong in saying that evolution tries to explain the origin of life, again, I admit that I was wrong there. It is not then rational to say, well, I guess God did it until something better comes along. What you are saying...
Yes, it is.
No, what you are saying... Shut the fuck up. What you are saying right now, dude, is literally, I'm going to believe in God until it's proven wrong. You are asserting that God exists.
Or a better model comes around.
You are asserting God exists until something better comes along. That is called the fallacy of ignorance. You are engaged in logical fallacies right now. How the hell do you think that you are rational in any way, shape, or form?
Saying words, fallacy doesn't like make me wrong. You understand?
Yes, it does. In this case, it absolutely does. Or at very least, it makes you illogical. At the very least, it makes you illogical.
If you're using rational modeling, this is the best rational model we have.
No, rational modeling still goes off of something. It doesn't just assert and then just go with that until someone else comes up with something else. That is not how rational modeling works. You are doing what you are doing right now is engaging in the fallacy of ignorance. Why don't you look it up on your computer?
What do you do instead of engage in the fallacy of ignorance?
Instead, what you do is say the truth, the most rational explanation, which is we don't know.
Wow, you're really getting
and this is why you're revealing how dumb you're revealing how stupid you are, and that you're control. Hold on, hey,
I'm just happy to
no, that's not what I said at all. Keep on strawmanning. You look really great right now, buddy. Wow, very big brain. No, in fact, actually, it's okay. Sometimes we don't know things, and a lot of people are very uncomfortable acknowledging that they don't know certain things, or acknowledging that don't know or we don't know is the best answer at the time.
No. I don't know, but I have faith. That's the difference.
Faith is an excuse you're using because you lack evidence.
We do lack evidence, but that doesn't make it an excuse. It's just simply...
So it's wrong to believe that God did it.
I choose to go through the world using the best rational model to understand it that has ever been invented in all
Faith is not a rational model. You already acknowledged this in the beginning.
It's crazy. Then call me crazy. That's okay with me.
Wait, is faith a rational model?
No, the Christian worldview for how life began is the best rational model for that.
Why?
It's the best one. There isn't a better one. That's why.
You're... Okay. I honestly, I don't know what to do anymore. It's like talking to a fucking goldfish. You're so incredibly stupid, and all of your chat is just like LARPing hardcore jerking you off, so I hope you feel really great about that. But you are engaged in textbook... You are engaged in textbook logical fallacies right now. This is illogical.
Are they saying I'm doing a good job?
You are being illogical right now, dude. This is illogical. Why aren't you? Why are you willing to acknowledge? Why aren't you willing to acknowledge that this is illogical?
Because it's not.
So what is a logical fallacy?
Oh, here we go.
You tell me, man.
Seriously, do you think that you can be logical while engaged in a logical fallacy?
I think that you are misinterpreting what I'm saying.
You just said we can believe the Bible and believe in God because nobody has given us a better thing to believe.
Here's the thing. Going through the world, choosing to work within the best rational model of how it works is the smart thing to do, rather than just like nobody knows anything.
Wait,
up
could you
is
say
down,
that again?
left is
I'm
right,
sorry,
whatever.
I missed that. Could you say that again?
Going through the world, believing the best rational model that's been presented for how it works and how to work within it is the smart thing to do.
It's not rational if you are engaging in a fallacious argument.
Understand that this is what... Let's talk about... Where is the quote? This is what Nietzsche said about abandoning belief in God, okay? This is what he said happens if you abandon belief in God without a better model for understanding how the world works.
I don't care what any... I don't care about this. You're hiding now behind...
I know you don't care.
You're
in
hiding
that
behind
super-
quotes from philosophers because you think it makes you sound big brain. I want to hear
No,
from
I'm trying
Mayo
to
himself.
help you
I want to hear from the
understand
man,
basic
the myth, the
logic.
legend, little Timmy himself, Mr. Mayo, okay?
Uh-huh.
Superior white Aryan boy. I want to
Okay.
know how the fuck you can say that it is logical and rational to believe that God is the explanation for the beginning of the world if you are, one, unable to demonstrate that, and two,
One.
your only reason for this is because nothing better has been provided, which is fallacious.
Okay, the reason why is because it leads to the best results. If you abandon belief in God, then you don't know what's what. You don't know how to go through the world. And
No,
I
it
get
doesn't
why
give
to
you the best results at all.
I get to you why that is like scary, okay?
It's
Or
led
like
to bigotry. It's led to crusades. I mean,
Oh,
the
not
fact that you're
bigotry.
saying
not
no.
bigotry, please.
The fact that you think just blindly believing in some ancient
Crusades?
book
No,
is somehow
no, not the
better than
Crusades.
simply acknowledging the fact that we don't know. I'm sorry, but again, this is what rational people do. I consider myself a rationalist, you
Bigotry
know?
is fake,
For me,
and
I
so
like
are
to
the
go,
Crusades,
hey,
by the way.
by the way, I like to go through things saying, starting with, I don't know, and then the more evidence that comes out, the more rational and reasonable and justified it becomes for me to then believe that thing. What you're saying is the other way around. You're saying, here's my conclusion, and until somebody proves it wrong, I'm going to go ahead and just believe it. That is fallacious.
Okay, now, if you truly want to understand what made me believe what I believe, I'm going to read this Nietzsche quote because it's a part of it, okay? And this is why I am a part of why I am the way that I am about this, which I'm trying to help you understand. Look, here's the problem. You and I are not going to see eye to eye on this because we have different modes of thinking and figuring out what is truth. So, but we can understand each other.
No, you don't believe in truth. You don't have truth. You have no way of demonstrating whether or not what you believe is true. You just take it on faith.
So here it is. He says, have you not heard of that madman who lit a lantern in the bright morning hours, who ran to the marketplace and cried incessantly, I seek God, I seek God. As many of those who did not believe in God were standing around just then. He provoked much laughter. Has he got lost? Asked one. Did he lose his way like a child? Asked another. Where is he hiding? Is he afraid of us? Has he gone on a voyage, emigrated? They yelled and laughed. The madman jumped into their midst and pierced them with his eyes. Whither is God? He cried. I'll tell you. We've killed him, you and I. All of us are his murderers. But how did we do this? How could we drink up the sea? Who gave us the sponge to wipe away the entire horizon? What were we doing when we unchained this earth from its sun? Whither is it moving now? Whither are we moving? Away from all suns? Are we not plunging continually? Backward, sideward, forward, in all directions.
Wow.
Is there still any up or down? Are we not straying as though through an infinite nothing? Do we not feel the breath of empty space? Has it not become colder?
Okay, audiobook. Can you cut to the end, please?
Closing in on us. Do we not need to light lanterns in the morning? Do we hear nothing as yet of the noise of the grave diggers who are burying God?
How do I turn audible to like
nothing
2-speed?
Yet of the divine decomposition.
You're losing him, man. You're losing him.
All right. Well,
you're not. Again, I don't care about some quote. Honestly, the funny thing is that to me sounds just as it's cute because you obviously like to read a lot of stories, some from the Bible, some from other books. But I'd like to back up again because it's actually really funny. It's really funny how maybe you should look up definitions of different fallacies. Because you are continuously engaged, because you are, apparently you haven't, because repeatedly now you are engaged in fallacious arguing. So again, one, you appeal to ignorance, which is a fallacious argument. Therefore, it is illogical. Two, what you said, believing in God it leads to good benefits. Again, this is called the fallacy, appeal to consequences fallacy, which asserts that something must be true simply because it would lead to desirable consequences if it were true, or belief in something for the sake of it, which is also illogical. Why are all of your arguments built on illogical conclusions?
So wait. So Wikipedia says it's illogical to come to a conclusion which leads to the best results, and you just buy that. So you're gonna go with the worst thing
Wikipedia? I'm reading you a logical fallacy right now. What are you
from
talking about?
Wikipedia, aren't you?
No, do you know? You actually don't know what logical fallacies are, do you? And even if it were on Wikipedia,
Yes,
that would
I
actually
took
be irrelevant,
philosophy 101, moron. Okay. Now you
Really?
tell
I would
me-
not
you
even
tell
believe that,
me-
considering the fact that you apparently are
Okay.
engaged in multiple logical fallacies.
Now
You
you
realize
tell
right now
me-
that you are absolutely cornered here, dude. You cannot tell
Now-
me that you have a
I
logical,
feel so
reasonable,
cornered
and
right now.
justified belief
I'm the
while
one who
also
feels cornered.
engaging in
That's why you're
logical
trying to
fallacies.
steamroll the conversation, right?
I'm not trying to
the one that-
steamroll anything, steamroll
you're
anything.
terrified
I'm
to
trying to
let me
demonstrate
talk.
to you that you're a fucking dipshit who is
That's why you're
repeatedly engaged
terrified
in
to let me talk.
illogical arguments.
He's like, please, he can't talk anymore. It's so bad for me.
No, I don't
Okay,
want you to
look,
go back to audible
now-
mode where you just
now
keep on reading
you-
shit.
Now you tell me what Nietzsche was even trying to say there. Do you even have the comprehension to understand what one of the greatest super geniuses in the history of the world was getting at there? You don't. You have
Was that a
no
rhetorical
idea.
question or
Explain it to me.
no?
You have no idea. You
Nor
can't
do I
even wrap
need
your
to.
head around it.
So what you're doing now, it's funny, you keep engaging in fallacies. This is actually now
Oh,
an ad hom attack.
I'm
Now you're
excusing,
saying
that's a
because
logical
Hunter didn't
fallacy,
understand
William.
random quote that I spewed
Yes,
out,
William, that's a
therefore
logical
you should
fallacy,
ignore what
actually.
he is saying. How come literally every single fucking thing you say is built on logical fallacies? Why is that?
Actually, that's a logical fallacy, actually. Explain to me what the great super genius Nietzsche was trying to tell you there. Or can you just not, do you not have the wavelength to understand that?
I'm
at
not
all?
sure what relevance this has.
You
It
don't
doesn't take away
understand.
from the
You
fact
just
that you're
don't get it.
engaging in logical fallacies in order to
You just
prove
don't-
or in order
just don't
to
have the
claim,
IQ.
quote unquote, justify your belief in God.
I don't know who told you that, talking to people is just saying, logical fallacy over and over again. But,
I'm not just
try some
saying
critical
logical.
thinking here.
I'm not just
Try
saying
some-
logical
try some
fallacy. I'm
reading
demonstrating
comprehension.
what you are doing and
So
what you are
try-
saying that is fallacious. If you
So
are
try-
engaged in a logical fallacy, your conclusion cannot be logical.
So
Yes or no?
explain. So again, explain to me, what do you even know why I read that quote?
You're
Do you
dodging
even have
right
any
now.
idea?
You're pivoting right now.
Dodging what? You're the one pivot. I've asked you the same question 4 fucking times, and you just
You're
keep
asking
saying
me an
logical
irrelevant
fallacy,
question.
logical
You're like,
fallacy,
what did the
logical
quote
fallacy. You're
mean
like,
that I
give me an
read?
answer,
What did the
dude.
quote mean that I read? What did this mean? Please explain it to me right now.
Yeah,
I
I've
don't
read
need
it for a
to.
fucking
It doesn't take away from the fact that your arguments for God
it for a
are
fucking
unjustified and illogical.
funny
You are an
because
irrational
everyone in the
fuckwit,
chat
dude.
understands it.
You're an
Everyone in the
irrational
chat
fuckwit.
understood what I was saying.
You're irrational.
Okay, here. Since you have no reading comprehension or critical thinking ability whatsoever,
Says
I'll
the guy
explain it
engaged
to
in
you.
multiple different logical fallacies.
I'll
But please
explain it.
continue.
I'll
Do you think
explain it
doing
to
that
you,
little
okay?
funny voice makes you look good right now?
It does, yes. Actually.
This entire time
So-
you've done nothing but appeal to fallacious arguments, and every time I point it
Shut
out,
up.
you go, "Oh,
Find
it's
a new
fallacious."
favorite
LOL,
word.
LOL.
Please find a new favorite word, dude. Please. Okay,
No,
look.
you stop
I'll
using
explain it to you.
fallacies, and I won't have to keep saying it.
I'll explain it to you. Okay, I'll explain it because I've thought long and hard about that quote because there's a deep meaning there which you are just incapable of grasping. Okay, and the bottom line is that if you abandon this worldview and understanding of how things work, it's on a deep epistemological level, on a metaphysical level, which I don't have time to explain
what
all
you're
of this, but
advocating
your ethics is directly downstream from your metaphysics. Okay, what you believe is real directly is the cause of what you believe is good. And epistemology, how you know what is true, is how you figure out what's real, and that leads to what you think is good. And that's why Nietzsche was saying, how are you going to know up from down anymore? How are you going to know good from bad anymore? Look at the lefties all arguing with themselves.
You don't
and
need
they all
God
look like
for this.
freaks. They all look like freaks, and nobody knows what's good anymore. They're all arguing. They all have their own little worldviews that are completely contrived and made up and completely bullshit with no foundations in epistemology or metaphysics whatsoever. They have no idea what's
Are you
going
okay?
on in the world, and you can see it by how they look. And just like Brittany was saying the other day, as you have abandoned your solid foundations of your worldview, you've started to look more like a pathetic pussy freak.
Hey, miss, I can see that you're getting very mad. Maybe your low IQ is catching up with you. But again, I'm not the one who has built my
Say the word again. Say the word again.
Hey, you remember the Bible verse? I really like it. It was the one that Jesus told the story about a wise man builds his house upon a rock. When you build your conclusions upon nothing but fallacious arguments and instead are appealing to ignorance and are instead whining because, well, until somebody provides a better answer, I'm just going to believe this dumb thing, then you, my friend, are the stupid person who built their house upon the sand, okay? And that is unfortunately why you are the best demonstration. You are the best demonstration we have that there is no God. Clearly, we evolved from apes because you appear to still be running on an actual chimpanzee's brain.
Okay, so today I learned that Jesus was saying that the Bible is the sand instead of the rock. Look,
if it's not justified, yes, actually, unironically, yes.
Here's what you do. Oh my God. Here's what you don't understand. The Nietzsche was an atheist, okay? And he was giving you the problem. He was talking to you in the future way more than me. He was talking to you and giving you the problem with this worldview. He was saying that once you abandon the rock of a solid foundation in a Christian worldview, you are the one on sand. You have no idea what's going on, where you are,
your house
what's
on a rock,
up, what's down, which direction you're heading.
Should the rock be justified belief? Should the rock be a justified? Hey, should the rock be a justified belief?
The Bible is a justified belief.
Really?
Yes, and that should be the rock.
So
Jesus is
you
the
haven't
rock.
actually demonstrated that it's justifiable at all. You said the reason we believe that God created the world is because we haven't provided anything else. We haven't discovered anything else. Right? And not to mention the philosopher you're quoting, I believe, was an atheist as well. So, I mean, there's that also. But even more so, if you're going to talk about...
I just said that.
If you're going to talk about building anything on a solid foundation, that solid foundation should be justified. It shouldn't be built on faith. It should be a justified belief that doesn't require faith in order to believe it.
Right.
Which you do not have.
No, you got me, man.
And that's why you're an irrational fuckwit who is akin to a chimpanzee.
I'm a walking logical fallacy. You got me.
You actually are, and I know that you think it's like an own to point out that I said fallacy a lot, but again, like if you were actually engaging in rational thought and were not engaging in fallacies, then I wouldn't have to say fallacy a million times. Yeah.
Was Nietzsche engaged in logical fallacies?
I don't know. I'll have to look into it a little bit more. But either way,
Well,
I feel really bad for you, man. Like
God. He said if you abandon the belief in the Christian God, then you wouldn't know up from down and good from bad anymore.
I don't care what he said in that regards. That's not true. We've proven otherwise already. And again, yeah, that actually is kind of the appeal to consequences fallacy.
So
I'm going to just have to keep saying fallacy over and over again because, again, you're really, really stupid, so I have to say things like 50 times, okay? You think like a woman, or at least a woman in your book, because you don't have any justified belief. You don't. Yeah, I'm going to insult you. You're stupid as shit, dude.
You know the worst.
You're stupid as fuck. Everybody is laughing at you. Everybody, everybody outside of the little circle jerk virgin fest cozy.tv is laughing hysterically at you.
Hunter, is thinking like a woman bad?
In this regards, or in the way that you seem to think that thinking like a woman
is,
then yeah, that would be pretty bad. To be basing everything on emotion. You know, I feel like I should believe in God. Well, nobody else has given me anything else. Ooh woo. Then yeah, that's kind of you right now, dude. And I'm sorry, but again, you are actually.
Women are emotional more than rational.
The Bible predicted people like you. They said the foolish man built his house.
Predicted people like you.
The foolish man built his house on the sand, and that is what you have done. You have constructed your entire religious worldview on cocky quotes from philosophers you don't understand, and a bunch of bullshit and logical fallacies. And then when people point it out, you go, "Oh, haha, he said fallacy." Wah wah wah.
Actually, Goyam, Jesus was saying that he's the sand, and you shouldn't believe in him.
I don't give a shit what Jesus said. Maybe you could demonstrate it. You know? Could you demonstrate it?
You don't give
Is there any justified belief in that?
And Jesus said this thing which I don't believe in or care
Do you have any
about.
justified belief for this? No, I'm actually demonstrating
Whatever I
how
want
you
it
are
to be.
contradictory to your own dumb fuck faith. And this is why, again, it's called a faith, is because without it, you have nothing.
You just remember, Hunter, that Jesus said that even blasphemy against him and God can be forgiven. Okay?
My friend, your existence is blasphemy against God. Again, no good God would ever create a cretin like you, and no good God would ever create someone as dumb as you are either. The fact that you have engaged in multiple different fallacies the entire time, the only way that you can even demonstrate your belief in God is by appealing to ignorance, dude.
No good God would create someone that thinks like women.
Yeah,
right?
and I'll leave with this. Why is it that a God who apparently wants to know us, who is also good, cannot be demonstrated without engaging in logical fallacies? Do you think maybe that's a little bit of a problem?
Well, actually, I think maybe what you think of logical fallacies are actually the best way to get to the truth.
There's a reason why people as dumb as you are the types that believe in God, and then people that actually take a rational approach don't. That's the reason why right now. You're demonstrating it. Have fun with your fucking anime profile picture. Again, I'm sorry that you have no bitches.
I do.
Maybe
like
go and get like another blow up doll. You know, you can find one that looks like a anime. And even more so, you know what's really creepy is I've heard about these things in other countries. You can get like a blow up doll that looks like a kid. Maybe you would like that one too. But either way, fuck you, Mayo. You're stupid as shit. You're a blight on the world, and you prove once and for all that God is dead because no good God would ever create somebody as dumb as you. You have a good rest of your day, loser. Oh my God. That guy was so retarded. Ugh. Oh my God. Okay, well, that went well. It's funny too because truthfully, I don't have a really great understanding of philosophy. And I think it showed in some parts of that debate for sure, because some of the analogies he was bringing up, I didn't really understand fully. But then the more we talked about it, the more I realized, oh my God, this guy is stupid. He's not actually justifying any of his beliefs. He's just making claims. You realize that just making claims doesn't prove anything. Quoting a fucking philosopher doesn't mean shit. Yeah, everybody on his chat is going to say, I was so mad, I triggered, I rage quit. Everybody in my chat saying, oh, Hunter, great job, you fucking slaughtered him. But at the end of the day, even if I didn't understand the philosophy shit to the fullest extent, I was still able to demonstrate why what he believes is complete bullshit. It is unironically horseshit. And if anybody else believes something like that based on, well, nobody else has fucking proven it wrong, then you are stupid. And you should honestly be locked up in a mental asylum with little Timmy and Mayo. Jeez, man.